on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Flynn has just gotten pardoned recently. I'm hearing a lot of people talking about how this is indications that Trump is giving up, that Trump is saying, no, I'm not interested. You're right, I lose. All right, nice try though, right? Hey, come on, give me a pat on the back. Not true at all. They're letting this guy go because this poor guy's been in jail. We got a judge that's holding him in place. The case has been dropped, and we've still got a judge that's holding him in jail because the judge just willy-nilly decided that's what he wants to do, or that's what he's been told to do. Speculation, who knows? I don't know for sure. What is obvious is he's legally leaving a man in jail, basically, because he doesn't want to let him be free. Very strange. So if you look at the resolve in his eyes, I'm reasonably sure Flynn's got some plans, and I don't think this is done by any stretch of the imagination, folks. Not even close. And I think if anything, him coming out is kind of more of something where it's like, I think we're going to be making use of him, maybe even coming out and talking about some things. We'll see how this plays out, but I certainly don't think it is over by any means yet. Now, to say honestly, the one thing that, like, if it does happen, I'll be like, all right, I think he's accepting defeat, is when Trump pardons himself. And I think he legally can do that as the president. I believe he can pardon himself. But I think, I might be wrong on that, but I think Nixon actually did that. And I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong on that, but I don't know. But that being said, when Trump pardons himself, that's when we know for sure he's given up, because they're going to go after him for sure afterwards. So it's probably the only thing he can do is to pardon himself for everything under the sun. So I don't think that's where we're at yet. And I do have some stuff to talk about that I think suggests that we're in a very good place and heading in that way. And so really, a lot of great news is coming out. One thing we got to cover, today's the day after Thanksgiving. Apparently YouTube is recognizing a thing called, I just learned about this today, it shocked me, unthanksgiving. Oh, okay. What is that, pray tell? Well, I guess it's kind of the opposite of Thanksgiving. It's sort of indigenous resistance. It has to do with the, quote, original owners of, I guess, the United States. But it really did kind of beg the question to me, right? Because I guess down here, generations before have lived on these lands. Days like unthanksgiving are opportunities for learning and understanding whose land you live on. Well, first off, I think it's the Earth, and it's Earth's land. But really, if we're going to start getting a little weird and technical, I mean, as far as when the Native Americans, quote, owned it, which they didn't have a concept of ownership, and I'm not saying what happened is good, bad, or whatever. I'm just saying we've kind of built a country, and this country's been there for a long time. It's kind of like you rent out a room in someone's house. They're kind enough to rent a room to you. You're there like 6 months, and you're like, you know what? I've been in this room for 6 months. I just want to let you know I own the house. And they're like, wait, no, you just rent a room. And you're like, yeah, so anyway, I've been here a while, and I own the house now just because I've been here a while. It's kind of how I feel. Like, we've been here a while, and now all of a sudden some people are like, no, it goes back to the Native Americans. Now, again, that being said, I don't totally disagree. I don't want to give it back to them. I think that's silly, but I don't disagree. But the question I have is, what if we go back even further? I mean, does it belong to the woolly mammoths? Does it belong, does it belong to Atlantis? Like, how far, but you just arbitrarily stop when the Native American culture had it? I mean, again, this land has been here way longer than people. So again, at one point do we draw the line? And again, I think I'm just trying to point out the ridiculousness of how this is being played in front of us. And anyway. And that being said, of all the people that were happy to go out and spread the joy on unthanksgiving, they did in Portland. Once again, Portland, Oregon, place to live. Go on you. Good job, Portland. Oh, no, you guys are showing us the way. Thank goodness you are showing us the way. Oh, man, looks like a wonderful place to live. So, yeah, they broke into these stores, did some serious looting. So, good on you. Apparently, these three were charged, which makes sense. And I just want to point out, I mean, person on the left, obviously, that was a great hair color. Like, blending right in, dude. Blending right in. They're like, what was this hair color? It was purple or pink. Not even sure. It's kind of a weird pink color. And they're like, pink? Really? Oh, my God. Do you know how many people have pink hair? Oh, they're everywhere. Uh-huh. That being said, good news on the Supreme Court rules against Cuomo. Yeah, Cuomo's trying to shut down churches. Supreme Court, which was Amy Coney Barrett, paying dividends. Interesting. But apparently, Supreme Court has been, they come out and said, no, sorry, Cuomo, you can't do that. The restrictions you apply to others must be applied equally in the case of churches. If there's room for them to socially distance and they can fit more people than X, 50 or whatever it was, then they can do that. So good news on that. And again, it's still using law to say it's okay to restrict religion, or at least the number of gatherers. But, again, that's where we get in troubles with the Second Amendment. And so I get nervous when we start accepting any form of restriction. But that being said, if they're going to apply these unique circumstances because of the current environment, you at least have to do it broadly and fairly across all spectrums. Now, of course, CNN not wanting to be outdone and not wanting to, not show how much they suck, they've decided to pull on their little coronavirus expert and sort of talk about the good and the bad of this, if you will. And I think it's worthy of listening to.
I want to pivot, sir, to the Supreme Court's ruling overnight. They blocked New York's coronavirus restrictions, limiting attendance at churches, synagogues, and other houses of worship. I know a lot of folks that I've discussed this with, they're asking about religious freedom and how certain officials are appearing to prioritize commerce over worship. But correct me if I'm wrong, there are specific reasons why going in a church, a synagogue, or a mosque can be problematic compared to going to, say, a liquor store, as Justice Gorsuch alluded to.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. This is not about religious freedom. This is not about civil liberties. This is about all hands on deck to save lives over the next few months till we get everybody vaccinated. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm a physician scientist, but I can say with firmness and clarity that human life is not cheap, and that Supreme Court ruling did just that. It devalues human lives and makes it really tough for.
Hang on. Human lives aren't cheap. So they're implying that the death of people that certainly fall into a unique categories. I understand saying any life is not cheap. That's true. And certainly the older we get, the more fountain of knowledge we have as well. But to say that when you shut down someone's business, when you lock people in their house, when you allow all sorts of abuses to continue because you don't have now even schools or teachers to be able to look at people and assess, why does Bobby have bruises? Like, you're saying this teeny tiny percentage of people, teeny tiny percentage, 250,000 over a year, which is a lot of people, and that sucks really bad, or 270, I don't even know what it's at yet. But when you think of how many people die from the flu, how many people die from respiratory illness, how many people die from just old age, a year, we should look at these numbers together. And I don't think this is as huge an issue as they make it out to. Because when you look at the survival rate of the COVID pandemic, and again, I'm not a doctor, not playing one. There's probably a warning below me. Like, listen to it, right? But what I'm saying is that COVID has a 99% chance if you're with under 70. And if you're over 70, it's like a 95% chance, 94.6% chance of surviving. Those are really good odds. If you had a 95% chance of winning the jackpot on a slot machine and you only had one chance to bet, would you do the double the money, the full amount of money, right? The full bet? Or would you just put the one quarter in? You put the full bet in, right? You have a 95% chance of winning. So, again, thing number one that sort of irked me about this, but he continues.
Our healthcare providers to provide the best care possible to lower mortality rates. This is not a time to resort to ideologies, or this is a time, as I say, for American pragmatism to focus on saving lives over a very defined period of time. We're not talking about perpetuity. Let's just do this for the next few months in order to keep everybody and get everyone to the other side.
Oh, yeah, because that's never, ever, ever abused by government. Never once. Gretchen Whitmore, New York Cuomo. No. Never, ever abused at all. No, just trust us for right now. Give us a couple weeks, just a couple weeks, and we'll take off the weight, right? No. You guys suck, all right? And so whatever the case is, Mr. Scientist, Doctor, whatever the heck you are, CNN, obviously there's something you're trying to point out, and that's a lot of crap. Now, what's kind of interesting when you talk about the news, CNN specifically, especially Dr. So whatever the hell his name is, don't care, doesn't matter. But what's interesting is Chicago, or that's a city in Illinois. Let's talk about Illinois. People talk about, the right way to do things, the proper, correct way to do things. Well, last week, Illinois reported 15,415 cases in a single day. Single day, they had that many cases. Of course, they like to show that number in CNN, right? Well, at least while Trump was president. They don't really do it now, I don't think. But anyway, just saying, sidebar, whatever. Right now, 15,000, Illinois, a day, 15,000. Florida, way more than Florida's ever had, despite Illinois' population being 40% lower than Florida. Many of you probably did not know the dire situation in Illinois. That is because no mainstream media is choosing to report it. No other state, in fact, has averaged 12,000 cases a day for a whole week. Not even Florida, population 1.7 times. Not even California, population 3 times. And not even Texas, population of 2.3 times Illinois. So for deaths per capita, Illinois also exceeded the peak deaths in Florida twice, once in May and once again now. So why is this not news? Now, again, it's kind of sad that we're comparing who's gotten more deaths than the other. But what is interesting is when you look at what Illinois has done, the golden gem, the shining example, the beacon of hope for all of us out there. They've had mask mandates since May 1st, mask mandates, right? Got to wear a mask. George Biden's told us that. Or Joe Biden, sorry. I don't know why I want to call him George. I think it's funny. Joe Biden wants to wear a mask. You should wear a mask. I should have a mask on right now while I'm recording this YouTube video because I could potentially give you coronavirus through the YouTube. It could happen. I'm sure there is a case in France, some anonymous person that got coronavirus from YouTube. Probably happened. I doubt it. And of course, I'm being funny. That's not true. It never happened. I'm making this up. That being said, 5 million ad campaign to encourage mask wearing happened out there, closing indoor dining and bars since the end of October, and they've had a stay-at-home advisory in Chicago, and additional statewide restrictions were enacted as well last week. Yet, oddly, these seem to take first place in the number of cases. We hear a lot about how the deaths in Florida, now this is obviously written by someone that's very pro-Florida, of course, because Florida got a bad rap, right? Especially considering they were Republican. So no one wants to necessarily get everything all upset and anything like that. We're just trying to point out some of the obvious issues that exist, which is how, if it's a Republican state, it's a mass spreader event, it's the bad, wicked them. But the media doesn't talk about when left-leaning states or left-leaning controlled areas have the exact same situation, or like when senators on the Democrat side end up getting COVID. You don't hear about that in the news, do you? Now, again, it just plays into the whole side of how this all is, right? We've got literally censorship happening. We've got a media that only says one side of the story. They had that study recently. I've talked about it also. But they had that study recently where they showed of all these Biden voters, like 37% weren't aware of any of the Hunter Biden stuff. Like 17% of them weren't aware of the fact that, Trump had done some good things. I don't know. It was just a bunch of breakdowns on those numbers that show how essentially the media is not telling people the truth. And people talking about things that are happening are not okay. So we had a Pennsylvania senator that was suspended by Twitter after election hearing, after he was talking about it. Like he was bringing up some stuff. And it's truly a crazy world that we're at where people can't say, like, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing. I mean, Sidney Powell, her Twitter account was blocked because she was talking about her website and she was talking about the stuff that's going on and the potential fraud that's happening with Dominion and all this nonsense. And they're like, well, this isn't true. We're going to block your account because blah, blah, blah. It's salacious or whatever. It's hacked information, whatever. I'm sure it's neither of those, but whatever they chose to hide behind, what legal word. The fact of the matter is they're blocking people that are talking about what's actually going on right now, whether you agree with it or not. Sidney Powell is a lawyer of prestige, at the very least. And secondly, if she says she's filing a lawsuit and this is why, that's what she's attempting to prove There's no reason to block that. That is fact. It's not fiction. It's not made up. She's not trying to make up some remedy for something. It's nothing like that. That's ridiculous. Now, some good news that you can chuckle about, at least I do specifically when it's California stuff, because I got really two awesome pieces of California news. They always said follow California, and we've got 55 electoral votes in this state. So, kind of worth paying a little attention to. We pay a lot of attention to Florida and Texas and New York, right? So, fitting, I guess. I'm sorry if you live in the better states that don't have the horribleness that we live with. Gavin Newsom, they're talking about recalling him. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, but I think it's pretty freaking awesome. Just wanted to say, hope you go bye-bye, Gavin. Mussolini, as we call him. Republicans flipped a third U.S. House seat in California. A third. Now, I just want to say that one of them happens to be my county. Just saying. Just saying. Not trying to take credit for it, but it was totally me. 100%. I'm totally kidding. But California Republicans flipped 3 seats in this state. I mean, there's like 500 House seats in California. I don't know how many there actually are. It's a lot. It's stupid. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to show my ignorance by literally telling you I don't know exactly how many House seats there are right now. I don't. It's like 500 something or whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Sidney Powell. She released the Kraken. What came from that? Well, one, Twitter block for sure. But, you know, you're not allowed to talk about things that are actually happening in the real life if it doesn't go along with what they want you to believe is actually happening in the real life. It's a catch-22. It is, and it's a fine line, too. It's very difficult to tightrope walk. That being said, massive election fraud and foreign interference. That's what she's alleging happened. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know, and Trump even said this, I don't know if we have enough time. Now, they kind of cut it up a little funny, but you know, there's a lot, they've got all sorts of proof. It's just whether or not they have enough time. And I really do, again, just to reiterate for like the 8th time, I do believe that's why there was the separation from Giuliani and them and her, Powell. And a lot of people tried to play that out, the media, I should say, a lot of people tried to play that out as, see, they suck. They don't know what they're doing. No. Trump and Giuliani are going down a very, very successful path right now as well, especially in Pennsylvania, and will likely overturn that state. By overturning that state, that changes a lot of electoral votes in a big way that already make things very interesting. Now, Georgia's going to be another one that they're filing in for sure. Nevada's one that's coming up. Arizona's also coming up. And when you think about it, if you're going to triage lawsuits, if you're going to triage how you're going to file your lawsuits, because that's what the media is talking about, show me the money. All right, well, here's 2 lawsuits that we've got filed so far as of yesterday, or 2 days ago. I'm hoping some stuff files today, but the courts are closed, so I doubt it. But that being said, if you're going to triage, you're going to start with the states, the biggest electoral vote states that you think you can flip, that you think you've got evidence of, that you believe really definitely should have gone to you, just hands down. And you start there, and you start making a list down using that criteria. So Pennsylvania, Georgia, like boom, boom. 2 major states that are almost guaranteed to turn when a lot of this evidence is seen by a judge and they're allowed to decide what's going on. Now, again, it might say right below, AP decided that the election went to Biden. I get you. I understand that. I hear you. My point is, AP doesn't decide who wins the election. We do, the people. And right now there's a lot of contesting that, and there's some disagreement. And so a lot of this is going to go to the courts, and we'll see how that plays out. And whoever wins in the end, or however this plays out in the end, I will support. That gives me a lot of wiggle room, by the way. That being said, Sidney Powell's cranking along as well. So we got both these people. She filed something. I guess there was some misspelling. I saw a version of it, but this particular one doesn't seem to. I'm not going to go digging for it, looking for a misspelling. My little brother was kind of a little critical of her, and he goes, well, I think it kind of illustrates her attention to detail. And I'm like, nah, I think it illustrates how much stuff they're trying to pull together in an extremely short time from the standpoint of legal and all that nonsense. They're trying to pull together a ridiculous amount of stuff. Now, did it pass a spell check? Like, there should have been some red squigglies if those legitimately happened. But, again, they probably got fixed in some other form or whatever. So, whatever. I don't see that as the end of the world by any means at all. And this guy, Rep. Mo Brooks, Mo, he talks about Trump could very easily win the second term. Now, how do they do that? Really, the keys of this is if there are a handful of states, Nevada, Michigan, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Florida, right? Like, if there's enough states with enough electoral college votes that are like, I don't know, then it goes to the delegates. And the state delegates would choose their one person. And when you break it all down, ultimately, a bunch of these guys, I think there's 26, maybe 12, 27 delegations that have a majority Republican Congress. And then there are 20 delegations that have a majority Democrat Congress. So that's what it comes down to. That's why a lot of people are like, but if it goes to the House, doesn't the House overwhelmingly go to the Democrats? Yes, but only because of New York, California, like, right? The states, like my state, that have 800 House members. I'm being intentionally huge. 800 House members here that are all Democrat, except 3. And so, yeah, overwhelmingly, Congress seems Democratic. But when you break it down state to state to state, all the flyover states that have like 3 members of the Congress that are all Republicans, there's quite a few of the states that tend to fall in line with that vote. And yes, will there be pressure on those people when the time comes, when push comes to shove? Yes. I am sure there will be pressures applied to them, probably from both sides, and hopefully some protections offered. But right now, everybody understands, anybody that's trying to pro-Trump or pro the process or pro-freedom is definitely anti-everything else, right? Like, everybody else hates you. So you're like the antimatter to the world's matter, and I really do think a majority of us are in the antimatter zone, if you will. But the media has a giant megaphone right now, and that's all we hear. And so it creates a false pretense. It creates a false set of truth. Creates some false BS is what it creates. Kind of how it's playing out. Now, just an example, and this is one of the things, and I just wanted to give one more example of how this game is played. You've all heard the stories of, well, they found 327 votes for Trump, or they found 4,286 votes for Trump, or they found 18,276 votes for Trump. I'm trying to do different accents, but they really all sound the same, don't they? But all these people are like, that's not really enough votes. Yeah, it is. When you find those in multiple places simultaneously, and then you aggregate them or add them up, yeah, those numbers start to actually become legitimate numbers. On top of the potential odd spikes they see in the digital numbers, there's some things to put together that might imply a bigger problem. So again, the media is focusing on there was 214 votes. How that's not going to make any difference. First off, there's been one election for sure that was down to like 52 votes, and they did find like 214 votes, and it actually changed the outcome of the election, and a Republican won in that particular case. So first off, yes, it does matter that even if there's 214 votes, probably in the local election, and on top of that, add that with all the other elections, yes, it does add up. It does make a difference, and that's what we're going to find. Now, again, people were talking about just the fact that Amy Coney Barrett's already in there. She played a huge part in why Cuomo had the choice made. They stuck her in charge of New York, which is pretty awesome if you think about it. And I believe it's because of who she replaced, right? I believe that was her district. So, you know, it's just how it played out. I don't know. We don't make the rules. We just try to follow them, people on the deep state left. Democrats, you're friends, of course, but right now you're just playing with the enemy. That's all. I'm just saying. And then finally, most importantly, Trump is still moving ahead with a lot of things. There's a lot of processes happening. There are still operations happening. There was a famous physicist, nuclear physicist in Iran that recently met his demise. The blame is possibly going to Israel, but it does show that regardless of what's happening, certain stopgaps are definitely being put in place. So no matter what, and I don't want to sound like I'm doubting what's going to happen. I'm actually not doubting who will ultimately become our president or be our president for the next 4 years. How it plays out is still where I'm super duper curious. And again, there's minimal time, there's minimal stuff, there's like a lot of stuff that needs to happen, and there's a very small window to do this. I'm reasonably sure that window's going to get all sorts of jacked. This is 2020. I'm not expecting this to go anything close to normal or right. So again, curious how this plays out. I'm reasonably sure what the outcome's going to be, just not sure how that happens. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting for sure. That being said, Trump's even going to put some more stuff into place, and this is probably going to happen around this whole Section 230 and all that nonsense. Again, the censorship is rampant, and honestly, I don't trust, if Trump's not actually at the helm, I don't trust the Republican Party or the Republican Congress at all to do what's best for us. I don't. I actually think there's maybe like 4 or 5 of them that are legit, but they will immediately get shut down, censored, and probably impeached or something crazy. So, no, I have zero hope. I think Trump kind of has to be at the helm. I kind of think he does to get us to where we as a planet/country need to get. That's where I'm at with it. How it plays out, I think it's going to be a good show. That's why everyone keeps saying, enjoy the show. I am like, I got my popcorn. I'm like just munching on it. It's kind of low salt, low fat, but it's good popcorn. It's not bad. Some roughage, I guess. Man, we'll see. We continue on. We'll see how this plays out. I know more news is coming. More lawsuits are coming. The final votes are coming. I know they keep saying, oh, we've guaranteed our votes. Good. You sign on the dotted line that you say those votes are accurate. We're waiting for that because that's going to be part of the lawsuit. Guess who's going to be named? Anybody that signed that. Again, the media makes it sound like something. I'm trying to help you understand there's more to it, and there's a lot of stuff that people aren't talking about. A lot. So try to be open. Try to be calm and patient. I know it's hard to. I agree. But we're heading through that. We're moving in that direction. This is what's happening. And it's going to go as fast as it goes, right? Like sometimes a movie sucks at a small part and you're like, I'm bored. And then it gets cool again. So again, we're at one of those, oh God, I'm bored or want to see something happen or it's not happening fast. Like wherever you're at in the scope of feelings, it's going to get better. It's probably going to get weirder. I think it's going to get a little more scary, divided, kind of not scary, divided, unfortunately so. And then at some point, we're all going to have to try to figure out a way to get along. So again, we're taking this in steps and stages. That's all I can do. And I'm going to continue to bring to you whatever information I can. Again, where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan Radio Style.